In recent years, Filipinos have ranked low in subjects like science and math and global studies. This company wants to bridge the learning gap through tutoring, counseling, and more. We talk about this and the state of the country's educational system with Educación.PH founder Henry Motte Muñoz. Henry, thank you so much for joining us. We just heard those stories earlier. Shortage of classrooms, too many students, several shifts of classes. This impacts the students and the learning process. How does this affect the 27 million students who are going to school right now?
Hi, Rico. Thanks so much for having us here. Look, these are real issues that existed before COVID, and in some ways they got a bit worse during COVID, but fundamentally these have been around for a long time. Students get affected because you can learn best when you're in an environment that's a smaller classroom that's well equipped, with teachers who have ample time to prepare the class, to actually teach a smaller group, and then are able to do all the reporting and grading afterwards. I think what you're seeing is a system that's being stretched. We need teachers to have more time, fewer students each. And so I think there's quite a lot of investment that we still need to do as a country in our education system.
And as you mentioned, it has been a problem for many years. Administration after administration after administration, our growing population, but it seems like they can't still resolve this issue. Latest reports are showing that we're faring very poorly in English proficiency. I mean, how bad is the situation actually?
Frankly, it's very bad. And I think, to put it into context, before COVID, we had a learning poverty incidence of about 65%. That has now grown to 90% post-COVID. So what you're saying is, if you take a group of 100 10-year-old students, 90 of them can't understand a simple paragraph of text. And so this means that this is not just a problem in certain provinces or in public schools. This is a problem in Metro Manila and in private schools as well. I think I'm a bit of an optimist, so there is a way forward. Administrations have been doing some investment, and so there's been good progress. But as you said, we need to move even faster if we're to account for the growing population.
And how is Educación.PH bridging this learning gap?
Sure. So, we've been around for a couple of years. We started off more in the college and career advice, and then we added soft skills training. But COVID was really an eye-opener in terms of the academic challenges that this country is facing. And also, one of the silver linings of COVID was parents and students became a lot more open to academic learning online. So not just getting advice, but actually learning English, learning math, learning Filipino. So we launched online tutoring earlier this year. We've had some pretty interesting traction to date. We've taught about 10,000 hours. We have a pool of 1,000 tutors, and what we're trying to do is apply what's called high dosage tutoring, which is a very fancy way of saying tutoring regularly in small groups. And high dosage tutoring has been shown scientifically to be one of the most effective methods you have of bridging learning gaps.
How big are these groups for, let's say, one tutor?
Very small. You're looking at either one-on-one tutoring, so it's just one child per tutor, or you can be in groups of 3 up to 6. In theory, our software allows up to 12, but we ideally like to keep it in groups of 6 or less.
And which particular subjects does Educación.PH teach?
So we currently teach English, math, and Filipino, and we'll be adding STEM subjects next year as well.
And at the moment, what is the take-up? I mean, in terms of online tutoring. I mean, you mentioned that you have more than 1,000 tutors in your database. Are they all busy?
So not all are busy for now. We're teaching a couple of thousand hours a month now. It's been ramping up ever since we launched a few months ago. And we're ironically seeing an increase in demand as schools reopened, because it's quite hard to get a student to do their 8th or 9th hour of online lessons. Once they're back in school physically for the whole day, it's a lot easier to say, let's add an hour for math or English at the end of the day.
And what is the tutoring cost, Henry?
So we have packages that start at 1,000 pesos a month. And so that's once a week for a subject, one of the 3 subjects that we offer.
So about 250 pesos a week.
Yes.
1,000 a month.
Correct.
But of course, for a lot of parents, it is also an extra effort, right? It's an extra cost for them apart from paying the school and tuition fees of their kids. But how does it really improve their proficiency in English, math, and Filipino? Do they experience better grades when they get online tutoring?
Absolutely. And so the way we're very selective. We only accept 3% of teacher applicants to work with us. They're all career teachers. No one's just doing this as a part-time thing. And we've run, even in small groups, we've had in 8 weeks improvements of 44% in math scores and 27% in English scores. We always assess students before and after the intervention. And that's why high dosage tutoring works. You're consistently going over core material with a child. It's incredibly effective.
And this is open, Henry, to all kinds of students, both in private and public schools?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, look, the reality is, if you're in a private school, 1,000 pesos a month is something that your parents could potentially afford. For those who go to public school, that's usually much more out of reach. And so what we've done is we've partnered with foundations and we do fundraising drives. So essentially it can be free for some public school students through scholarships.
And how many students have already signed up with Educación.PH to avail of your tutoring services?
So on the tutoring side, we are at about under 5,000. So it's still in the early days compared to our college advice, where we're helping 8 million students a year. So it's very much in the earlier phase.
And it's not just about tutoring kids for English, math, and Filipino. You also empower students on the soft skills, such as financial literacy, gender equality, mental health, environment, and others, to at least mold them into be well-rounded Filipino kids.
Yes, we're firm believers in a holistic education, and we do see a gap. These are subjects that don't get graded in international competitions.
Yeah.
So as a school or as a government, they're never going to be your ultimate priority. You're still trying to get the numeracy and the literacy done correctly. But it's very important, right? If you want a high-functioning civil society, you need people to go through civic education. If you want to reduce teenage pregnancy, you need to have sex education in an age-appropriate way, obviously. But we need to teach these subjects. So that's our position on it.
Absolutely, because I graduated more than 30 years ago, and we're taught to memorize, right? Memorize equations, memorize formulas. And now I've basically forgotten already all the math formulas, science subjects that I've learned from 30 to 35 years ago. We also have to think. We have to analyze, right? It's not just about memorizing what the teachers teach us.
Well, and especially, in the digital age, information is cheap and easy to get access to. So what's much more interesting is, can you teach a child how to think? Can you teach a child how to analyze? Can you teach them how to communicate? So, when we do English teaching on the edge tutoring side, we're not really just teaching grammar. We're trying to teach students to analyze and understand, written or spoken words and express themselves in a way that's very, eloquent, efficient, effective.
And which particular age group does Educación.PH tutor children?
So we focus on the 4 to 14-year-olds.
All right.
We have some students as old as 16, but it's really on the primary and earlier secondary.
All the way up until grade 7?
We do until grade 10.
I do until grade 10.
Senior high is a bit more complex, so we're not offering that for now, but we'll probably offer it next year.
When you, of course, offer grade 10, grade 11 and grade 12, then you also have to help students with college and career guidance counseling. Pathways to education for a university or a college education.
Yes, so that's actually ironically what we started with 7 years ago. So that we already have in place, and it's used by about 8 million students a year in the Philippines.
And is the business opportunity in this particular tutoring sector vast? Is there potential for more players to enter this industry?
Absolutely. It's a very large industry. You're looking at north of 20 billion pesos spent a year on tutoring in this country. I think what's interesting is the only truly national brand you have in tutoring so far is Kumon, which is great. We really look up to them. And they obviously came from the offline world. But on the online side, there hasn't really been any brand that's emerged yet as the go-to name. And so that's what we're aiming to do.
Henry, all the best to Educación.PH, and thank you so much for joining us right here on The Final Word.
Thanks so much, Rico.